But to fall off this bad, knowing the talent that's on this roster, I could argue that they're this year's Florida State. Clemson, Georgia Tech. What a game. Is it over for Clemson? Is Clemson this year's Florida State? That's what people are asking. I'm not saying it because I would argue almost Kansas State fits that mold a little bit more, but people are talking about it. You know, Clemson arguably has a first-round pick or a first-round talent on every level of their defense, a veteran quarterback who a lot of people were talking about as a potential first-round pick in of itself, one of the most underrated wide receiver rooms in the country, what we projected to be a great offensive line, continuity with the quarterback and the offensive coordinator. You have Dabo Swinney, a national championship winning head coach. You bring in, I believe it was Tom Allen from Penn State, who just led an incredibly effective defense at Penn State. And you're looking around and you're saying, we're 1-2. In our one win against Troy, they were up 17-0 on us for a minute. And we had to crawl our way back at home. And you can talk about the weather delay all you want. But Clemson, what are we doing here? Truthfully, what are we doing here? I mean, this is wild. People are comparing you to Texas A&M. People are comparing you to Miami. Teams that have all this talent but can't execute on Saturdays, and it's a complete disappointment. And here's the difference between Clemson and those teams. I don't project Clemson to have a national championship level roster year in and year out because that's not how they build their program. Different to what we consider a traditional college football program where, yes, they will use the high school recruiting. Yes, they'll lean into the transfer portal. There'll be a balance. It's about 98% high school recruiting, and, you know, Dabo does a great job with that. It's like 2% transfer portal, and it just recently got to 2%. Their best defensive player, statistically, Will Helt, was a Purdue transfer, and he's been one of their best players. And that's what I've been banging the drum of for years at this point, that Clemson, if they want to elevate this roster to go back to the levels of what we saw them in the 2010s, they would have to dip into the transfer portal, or Dabo Swinney would be phased out of the world of college football. I don't mean to get fixated on Clemson because they're the team that lost. Georgia Tech. I'm glad I bet the 7.5 wins because 7.5 wins was criminal. Go look at their record now and go look at the rest of their schedule and try to tell me how were they set at 7.5 wins. There's something about a team that has an identity that I just fall in love with every single time. We talked about it with Texas, and we've been seeing Texas phase out of an identity that is not there, and they continue to struggle on the offensive side of the ball. Georgia Tech knows they're not going to be throwing for 400 passing yards every game. They know that they're not going to be a team that's overly dynamic that can beat you in a multitude of ways, but what they can do is execute. They can execute better than you. I understand that's a lot of coach speak to some people, and a lot of times whenever they hear a coach say, we just have to execute better, they kind of roll their eyes and just say, well, maybe you're just not that good. But I can promise you that Brent Key and this Georgia Tech team knows how to execute better than you. They're not hiding from it. You know exactly what they're going to do. They're going to run the ball 19 plus times with Haynes King. They're going to be able to run counter. They're going to run any kind of run concept on the face of the planet, and they're going to run it better than you. And there's nothing you really can do about it. They were at home. They looked fantastic. And if you're Clemson, and honestly, if I were to tell you, if you're watching this and you were to say, I didn't watch the game, maybe I just woke up from a coma, like I don't know what happened. And I told you, Clemson, yeah, they lost the turnover battle, but they were to outrush Georgia Tech. And your prior knowledge was everything that we knew about Georgia Tech and Clemson, but you just missed the game. And you'd be telling me, well, if they outrushed Georgia Tech, Clemson, a team that struggled to run the ball for the first 2 weeks, Adam Randall has been slightly disappointing. They outrushed Georgia Tech. Their MO is running the ball. They should win that football game. And I'm here to tell you that a 55-yard game winner is the difference. Running down the clock with no timeouts, get on the field and hit a 55-yard game winner. Bravo. Just if you do not play football any part of your life, I need you to understand. Truly take the time to go look up how difficult it is to just do a field goal. Minuscules of seconds could make the difference between a successful and a botched kick, and have to do it with running clock. I mean, we saw what happened with, I believe it was Harrison Butker with the Chiefs. That was impressive. To do it for a game winner is remarkable. We have to talk about Cade Klubnik a little bit. This tanked his stock. I was not that high on Cade as an NFL draft prospect for a couple of reasons. A, doesn't have that top-end arm talent that you're truly looking for in a quarterback. He has a little bit of mobility. He reminded me a lot of a Bo Nix, Kenny Pickett type, a guy that could probably function with a good offensive mind, but not someone that's going to elevate the pieces around him. I thought he could elevate at Clemson because we know the difference between college and the NFL. But I also thought that the accuracy could be a little wonky. There's a lot of times that if it's not an RPO, if it's not a one read where I have to just look here and get the ball out, the accuracy drops off a little bit. And a lot of people held on to what he did against Texas, and rightfully so. I mean, that's part of the reason why I held some hope around that, and I held some stock. But Garrett Riley and Cade, you just watch him, and the confidence is not there. It's not there. And when you don't have that confidence and you're looking at the rest of your ACC schedule, I mean, this was my number one team going into this year. And yes, I am dead wrong about that. You can clown me all you want about that. I completely understand. I put these rankings out. I know I'm not going to hit 100%. But to fall off this bad, knowing the talent that's on this roster, I could argue that they're this year's Florida State. Because Kansas State, yes, was projected to go win the Big 12, and we could talk about Kansas State. They'll probably be talked about on the Tuesday show. But knowing the expectations, especially Florida State last year when they were a top 10 team, we can't play the hindsight game. There was hope with DJU. There was hope that they could be a team that is continuously at the top of the mountain, went undefeated, got screwed out of a college football playoff spot. We can't play the hindsight game that people projected that they were going to be bad. They were a top 10 team for a reason. There was hype with Florida State. There was hype with Clemson. And it is faded away because now that's a conference loss. And that is a brutal one. I'd be shocked if Haynes King is not in the ACC title game. So much respect for Haynes King. The end of that game, if you watched it, was straight out of a movie. Picture perfect movie. I have so much respect for Georgia Tech. How can you hate Georgia Tech? They know exactly what they are, and they're going to out-execute you. And there's nothing you can do about it.